Alchemist.
In the fall of 2004, life had become tough for me. High school was a new world for me at this time. Life became complicated, lonely, and challenges came that I haven't seen in all my life at that point. But one night, in the dead silence of October, something came on the screen of my television that caught my eye. I was captivated by not only the music choice, but what I saw on the screen. I had watched anime beforehand, but had fallen out of the scene when I entered my high school days. They were Japanese cartoons. I was in high school. I shouldn't waste my time on this. But when November 6th came along on that fateful night and midnight rolled around...
You mean that little shorty there? Shorty! You gonna shorty do this? What else you wanna...
I was enthralled with what I saw. A show that had a mixture of tragedy, comedy, action, and so many other elements that were blended together into something I hadn't seen up until then. Those Who Challenged the Sun. The title of the first episode of the anime that led me on the road to dive back into a medium that I thought I grew out of. Sure, call me childish, call me immature, but this is the truth. It brought forth challenges, ideas, and so much more to me that I hadn't experienced up until that point. And then, everything went quiet. At least until 2009.
But he's a runt! Oh yeah, can a runt do this?
When Brotherhood was aired, a show that was more aligned with the manga, and I felt it did the manga justice and was still very entertaining too. And then, 2017.
Why, God? How did I disappoint you?
You stink!
I want to preface this by saying that when it comes to movies like these, there seems to be a curse. We're all familiar with the curse of video game adaptation movies, and it seems to be a trend that's appearing with anime adaptations into live action, whether it be Western touch like in the case of Death Note, just gag me with a spork, or a Japanese take on the material. There are a lot of live-action adaptations that can be bad at worst and mediocre at best. But when it comes to adapting things like long-running anime and manga as well as video games and cartoons, the main issue with turning them into a film is deciding what you should and shouldn't cut from the source material, as well as considering what you need in order to add to cover up any potential plot holes you make with what you're covering. These can sometimes result in absolute hell!
So listen, why don't you turn around, walk away, no one will even know you were here.
Full Metal Alchemist 2017 is but you didn't click on this video for a short version of the movie. There is a lot wrong with this movie that I do not like. And while there are some small aesthetic things that I like that are few and far between, I consider this movie to be bad. Now, when I say I think the movie's bad, it's not as bad as some of the more recent movies that we've gotten. It's not on the level of, say, The Black Panther or The Last Jedi.
It's longer.
Oh yeah, The Full Metal Alchemist is over 2 hours long. Wow. Just
Get used to disappointment.
So, let me get this out of the way. When it comes to a movie adaptation, I don't expect it to be a note-for-note translation from the source material. That would be completely unreasonable for a theatrical release. However, the problems of the movie arise when what they cut are portions of what make the characters, well, the characters that you grew to love. Let me give two examples right at the beginning. The first is Winry. No. Don't nitpick that. One of the charms of Winry's character is her interactions with Ed, and one of the most iconic interactions the two have is when Ed would break his automail.
It's basically the same, it's just in smaller pieces.
Edward, I thought I told you to call first when you're heading back here for maintenance.
Wait, Ray! Are you trying to kill me?
But then there's this scene where we see Winry's reaction to learning this fact in the movie. And it's not like the over-the-top scene couldn't be replicated in the movie. Use a prop wrench, use CG, edit it in. There are ways to make this work that wouldn't cost a lot.
Unacceptable.
But one of the more egregious character traits that seems to be cut from the films is Ed's famous reaction.
Lucky I've got a small body.
Oh no! I just got myself a tiny little pipsqueak!
The younger means little. You're little.
Where do you
Let us
go,
go,
you
Ed.
little- you
These people are being nice to let us stay.
I'm sure Lito would bless you and make you grow taller.
What's that supposed to mean?
What? You mean it's the little guy there?
Who's little? Come here, say that to my face, I dare ya!
たまたまこの町に軍事視察で来たらチビの錬金術師が暴れてると通報があってな。
チビって誰のことだよ What the hell was that?
You see, it's the over-the-top actions that are missing from the characters, and I get things like this.
You mean that little shorty there? Shorty! Could a shorty do this? What else you wanna-
Are next to impossible to pull off in a live-action movie, but the over-the-top reaction from Ed is still missed in the film. You see, while these may be little things about the characters,
Don't call me little!
there's still things that represent the characters and are parts of them that make us love them. Edward Elric was a stubborn yet strong-willed character with convictions, but he was still human. He had buttons you could push due to his quick-tempered nature. Ed was a well-defined, well-rounded character in both versions of the anime and in the manga, having an almost perfect balance of maturity and immaturity to him. This is a teenager after all. But in this movie, there's a lack of the goofier side of Ed. Hell, a lot of the other characters too.
Did you forget the way he tore you apart in East City?
Ooh, sounds like the Colonel's scared of Big Bad Scar. I'm not surprised considering how useless you were against him.
That wasn't my fault, it was raining that day!
Point is, there are a lot of little things missing in the movie that should be there, and while this may sound like it's not a bad thing, the little details quickly add up because they're missing. I think what gets me more is the film simultaneously pushes too much into it while at the same time taking a lot out of it. That's what it really feels like. For example, there's... Hey, hold on a minute. I know you! Oh, your talents are wasted. You got the Shao Tucker portion, you got Marco's rediscovery, Laboratory 5, Al contemplating whether or not he's real, Hughes' demise without, Hughes' charm, the mannequin soldier homunculi, and the confrontation between Mustang, Lust, and Envy. They mush those two scenes together. There is a lot to go over there, and by cutting a lot of the details and characters that have establishment in the original story, this is a problem, since the movie is opening up sequel material as well. There is no establishment of characters or characters that get killed off in the story that are vital in later arcs of the series, or that they go too far to incorporate aspects of the story that appear in later arcs. As I mentioned earlier, as in the case of the mannequin soldier homunculi, they show up way earlier. Oh, and speaking of the mannequins homunculi...
What a way to establish character can create tension.
That's really dumb! So if they intend on continuing this story in movie format, then there are going to be issues with the story and how they'll incorporate other characters and elements. Like, how will they develop a character like Scar in this?
I bought that shake weight you see on TV. 10 minutes a day, every day.
I have a hard time seeing that since in the original manga, one of the characters killed off in this movie was key in his development as a character.
Lucky me!
My groin!
Like I said, I understand you need to be able to have an escalation of plot, but taking a lot of events that had a lot of setup to them and a lot of character development in them, and that they held a lot more nuance to them, and just slapping them together into something resembling a plot is not the way to go. What doesn't help is this mess of an opening scene of the movie.
Evan?
Cousin.
Well, gosh,
Fear, elation, what is it? Despair, love, joy, tell us. Cold, jubilant, headachy.
His emotional memory is the previous scene.
Do you understand?
Ennui, angst, apathy, gas.
is a technical issue, but damn does it bug me as all hell. I found this in my first viewing of the movie. I shouldn't be able to do that. There should be a shadow over Ed's body here, and they just show that in the last scene. I will fully admit that some of these are nitpicks. After all, every movie has its flaws, and it isn't perfect. And I think that the best way to describe this movie is with the fight near the end with Mustang fighting the homunculi against Lust and Envy, which again happened at different times in the original story. And it's something that's really important because these fights really accentuated Mustang's character as well as his emotions. Against Lust, Mustang was charged with the prospect that one of his allies was hurt, almost fatally because of this woman. And yet, during the fight, he remained cool and calm-headed against her. And against Envy, we saw the unbridled rage of a man whose dream was to lead people, and we caught a glimpse of the cruelty that he was capable of, even to the point where his attacks bordered on the line of sadistic. Here, you don't get the same emotional impact because the two fights, while they did have a small connection, they did have different motivations behind them, and they just decided to cram the two fights together. And there were a lot of elements that were missing that would prompt Mustang to actually go all out against the homunculi. You know, I started this video going on about how Fullmetal Alchemist inspired me and got me back into watching anime during a hard time in my life. Yeah, I can consider that it's sad that I felt inspired by a show, but it's something that I hold dear to me, and while this wasn't a full-blown betrayal to the Fullmetal Alchemist name, I was disappointed with the movie. And now that I've talked to a friend about this review, they made an interesting comparison to another movie after I told them about my issues with this film. They said my critiques sounded a lot like what I was critiquing was The Last Airbender.
No, you know, the critics are, I don't know what's going on with me and the critics of the United States. I gotta tell you, something's going on. They've never got me.
Still, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the movie? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Tell me in the comments below. Tell me if I'm full of BS. I'm Kamen, and remember to examine your fandom.
Live!